Once again, the BBC have sparked outrage among fans for their adaptation, this time of The Famous Five. Here we have our Famous Five. Now, before I actually get into the meat of this video, I just want to say that I did watch this adaptation of The Famous Five. I would have given it 2.5 out of 5. It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best. And let me just put it like this. The syntax was terrible. Using words like guys, mate, and saying that the last person who called me Georgina, I gave them a slap. And wearing trainers, that wouldn't have been something for the 1930s, potentially 1940s, whenever this book is actually set. Having said that, let's talk about what the actual uproar is. Of course, you may see the picture on the screen. You may have guessed it already. We have George. George, a mixed race tomboy. This is what's causing the uproar. There's also people saying that George is played by a trans kid. I don't think that this kid is trans. I actually think this kid is biological female. George is a tomboy in the books, and she's very much written that way. Yes, I know she gets called Master George, and that's a choice, but she still gets referred to as she. She prefers to do boy things rather than girl things. I was exactly the same, and I hated being called Miss and being given terms of feminine endearment. I was exactly the same. I'm not trans. But of course, people are saying that this is the case. The BBC has adapted Enid Blyton's Famous Five, and guess what? George is a black trans boy. Back in the 1930s, trans people did exist. There aren't as many back then as there are today, but they did exist, and there were black people back then, not as many as we have today, of course. I don't know where people have gotten this George is a trans boy, because if I go to the actress's profile, this is her Twitter profile, her name is Deanna and a biological female, and there's nothing on the internet to say that she is actually trans. And if you pull up an old interview that she's done a little while ago, if you look here, it says, tell us a little bit about your character, George. What is she like? You hear the words she. George is an independent girl who grew up without brothers and sisters. Later, she finds Timmy the dog, and they become like a family. She's independent, she lives by her own rules and likes to have fun. She doesn't always obey the rules, and she's quite a cheeky person. So what does that tell you? She's being referred to as a she. She is a tomboy. That is how she is being played. I also say that she's not trans because I had a look at her age, and she's actually 14, and the legal age to transition here in the UK is 18. The last trans minor that we had on screen was played by Yasmin Finney, and if you don't know who I'm talking about Rose from Doctor Who, and Yasmin Finney is very much an adult who is playing a 15-year-old. I don't think the BBC would have been able to get away with casting a quote-unquote trans kid in the role of George, and the reason why I say that is because it's illegal to transition children under the age of 18. So putting it onto the screen with an actual minor, I think they probably wouldn't have got away with it. They tested the water with Yasmin Finney's character in Doctor Who. I don't believe this kid is trans. George is not played as trans, and people are saying that George talks about her pronouns in the episode. I didn't hear it once. People are also having the issue with the fact that George is mixed race. Now, George is always depicted as white. That's the original drawings as well, that has been depicted that way. People are saying, oh, well, her skin colour is never mentioned in the book, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, you know what? If she's drawn as white, then she's white. But I had a quick read of the diversity quota, because it's something that's been intriguing me recently. This is probably a little bit out of date, so I'm just using it as an example, but this is the BBC Content Diversity and Inclusion Commissioning Guidelines. We are committed to meeting ambitious new portrayal targets that cover a wide range of diversity than ever before, with positive impact for audiences and greater opportunity for diverse talent. Everything that they're doing does actually provide opportunities for more diverse talent yes, but it's not having a positive impact on audiences. I do find the wording quite interesting. Here it says, encourage your researchers to look to accurately reflect all communities in the UK, including the nations and regions, and all social economic backgrounds, plus regional and minority languages. Do we see that? And then this is interesting as well. Consider authenticity in the incidental portrayal of ethnicity, sexuality, and disability across all content, in particular actors and extras. It says all content. So what that means is when you get historical characters like this guy here, this is supposed to be Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, that means that you should be casting him as people see him. Historically, he is white. Anne Boleyn, she was white, but instead, people don't bother with that. They go colourblind casting, which is because they have to meet the diversity checkboxes, which then sort of makes indirect discrimination in some respects, if you want me to be honest with you. That's what I think. Everything now has to be diverse. They want authenticity, but they never go with authenticity. Authenticity in people's heads could be that George, because she's always depicted as white, therefore she should be white. We know that Isaac Newton, factually, was a white man. They want audiences to experience a positive impact and a greater opportunity for diverse talent, which sounds great on paper, but they're not applying it. They should be applying it. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm not sure if I explained it particularly well. I've not been very well, so please bear with me. Chat about it, don't chat about it. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.